Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit arnoldclark.com.
Welcome to Peter and Roughie's football show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Rough, Tam Cowan and Steven Naismith are here with me on today's show. Delighted to have your company. You can hit the follow button on our Facebook and share the stream. And you can also hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. We'd love you to join the football family. Lots to talk about on today's programme. And it looks as if, Roughie, it's me, you and Tam now successfully one vaccine down. Just Naisy to get his, and then party time, Roughie. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think once you get your second injection, I think everybody's going to be a wee bit more relaxed. I think it'll open up a few avenues for us. No, we'd like to think that McManus and Naisy would get their jags as well. But they must be a wee bit nervous waiting to maybe July or August for it. But just hang on in. Hang on in.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang on, and we're all going to get back together at some point, Stephen. So Stonewall certainty. Listen, lots to talk about, although I would like to start by saying, and I don't know if any of you witnessed it, Stephen, I witnessed what I would consider one of the best games of football I've seen for the entire season last night. Football the way it should be played. Bayern Munich in the game against Paris Saint-Germain. It was like a school team game. It was magnificent.
Brilliant. I think I seen your social media post about it, saying it was the way football should be played. And totally right. I think, and on the face of it, it was a great game, people watching it. But the more you look into the detail, after PSG go 1-0 up, that's possibly the best situation for them in terms of they can just sit deep, counter Bayern constantly. But for Bayern to have the ball and the understanding to continue to do what they wanted to in terms of building up the play, and they're so fluent. For me, they're the best organised team in Europe. I know they get beat, but it was top level football for both teams. That it was a right showing.
Do you know what was refreshing about it, Tam? It was one of those games where, apart from, there was just one moment where Neymar had to have his, what I call, bog standard dive. You know, I'm not a fan of Neymar, but he had his bog standard dive. And then after that, I mean, there wasn't anybody wanted to waste time. It was, get out of my way till I take the free kick quickly, and then we can go at each other again. It was just a joy.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It's the best I've seen since one of my pals recently gave me the DVD of the recent Dunfermline Hearts game. And I thought that was the best I'd seen in a long number of years. But yeah, you know me, Peter, that I can take it or leave it with the European stuff. But that last night, it had to have the goal in 5 minutes to grab me, and by the big boy, Big Kylian Mbappe. I mean, I think Motherwell will be daft not to swoop for him over the summer. I think that boy has got a lot. But the great thing is as well, Peter, and this is a negative for me. I'll start in a negative. It is still only half time. And I can never really get too worked up. And I mean for Scottish League Cup games all the way up to the top. I can never get too worked up with the first leg of any game. But boy, oh boy, nobody's going to miss the second leg of that one. It was sensational stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Porto, Chelsea, and I'm thinking, take it or leave it. And as soon as the game kicked off, Roughie, I'm thinking, they're hammer and tong here. And there was one moment, Roughie, which actually, and it just shows you the margins, and Stephen will know about this, playing in the absolute top flight, whether it's Scotland or England. There was one moment where the Bayern Munich player had an option to play a simple 10-yard pass to the left-hand side to his teammate, who could have then crossed the ball into the box. He decided to play a 30-yard ball over to the right-hand side, gave it away, and Paris Saint-Germain went up the park and scored. It was blistering. One mistake and fine margins, you lose the game.
Yeah, it's fine margins when you're playing against quality players. When you're playing against the players at the top of their game, you don't get away with these mistakes. And you're right, these two-legged affairs, that usually if you're away from home, your manager tells you to sit in, don't give in away, try and come away with a clean slate, try and get an away goal, but that went out of the window last night. The two teams just absolutely went for it and entertained everybody, and top quality on the pitch. Can't wait the second leg.
Well, I was going to say, Tam's right, Stephen. I don't know if it's over. I mean, you wouldn't bet against Bayern with Lewandowski back having a go and turning them over.
No, exactly. I think at one point in the game last night, I was thinking Bayern will be sitting here worried, but then by the end of the game, even though they're a goal down, they'll be so confident that they can go away from home and not just score one, like you said. And I think Lewandowski coming back in, his relationship with Müller, Sane, they're much better than what we actually seen last night. The understanding's incredible. So, no, it'll be a fantastic second leg, and I think that the added layer on top will be with half an hour to go. What is the tie sitting at? Who's going to blink first? Who's going to sit deep and try and cling on? Or there's so many ways it can go this second leg in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the benefit of me being the only one in the studio is basically I've got my guaranteed backdrop. Tam is at peace with himself because he's got a little memory of the 1991 Cup final behind him. He's got his little writing bureau there as well, and the computer. So he's in a peaceful place. Stephen is, as you would expect, a guarded person. He's shown us a little sneak preview of one of his football rooms, but not too much of it. And then Roughie, Andy Wilson's in Australia, Roughie. I mean, I don't think people know that every day there's just a small tremor or an earthquake that puts all your pictures all over the place. Roughie, your house, the first day I ever witnessed your house, I absolutely was gobsmacked.
Is his bedroom backing onto that wall, no?
Listen, his house, in the first day I met Roughie, it's the maddest house ever because he used to have, Stevie, I kid you not, he had a wee dog which was absolutely lovable, and then this thing, it used to be, I mean, it was up to my neck and you could have put a saddle on it. I mean, this thing bounded towards you, and then it jumped away because it was the softest dog you've ever met in your life. So it looked as if it was going to attack you, and then when you went to clap it, it went back. But then you go into his house, his wife, who's a great journalist, she would read papers, and then you've got the big wall of fame with Kubias's jersey framed. You've got Roughie's 1982 World Cup jersey framed. It's just a magnificent thing. But clearly what happens is Roughie doesn't put any lights on and just fires a nail in and sticks something up, and there, if it moves, it moves. Is that the attitude? Because Andy Wilson is going mental.
No, Andy complained the last time, and as soon as I finished the show, I did get up and try and straighten them all. But as you say, I don't know what happens overnight in here, but certainly they are. I can see some of them are a wee bit ski-whiff, but I'm sorry, but you sure it's not just because he's for Australia?
Yeah, he's got it. He's got it. Don't worry, Roughie. And there's Roughie, obviously trying to fool everybody who watches the show into thinking there's red hot action in that house, which is why the pictures move. But we're not.
Peter,
I knew you were laughing, Naismith. I knew that's where your head was going.
Peter, talking of Roughie, if Gordon, our esteemed producer, can just keep the four of us on screen here and allow the viewers to look from left to right. This is like the story of a balding man who eventually gives up and buys a ridiculous wig.
You're absolutely right, Tam. Oh, dear. Anyway, apart from anything else, there are some serious issues to talk about on this programme today. John Kennedy was chatting ahead of Celtic's. Now, this is the last 5 games of the split now. Celtic are playing Livingston, and he has mentioned, everybody's talking about who's going to be the Celtic manager. John Kennedy is adamant that they won't be just pulling a name out of the hat to try and sell season tickets.
The club have to make the right decision for the greater good of the club going forward. Do you bring a manager and just name a manager now that isn't, they might think it's not quite right for the sake of a season book? or do they make sure they make the right decision long term? And that's what the fans, and I know it's difficult to understand that, without clarity, and I think, people probably expect that everyone behind the scenes knows everything. They should let everybody know everything, but some things have to remain private to a point where decisions are ready to be made, and they can obviously put that across to everyone else.
Okay, the caveat that I've been saying from day one, Roughie, is I do think Dermot Desmond knows who he wants. If, as we are hearing constantly, rumour and counter-rumour, that it was Eddie Howe. Now, I just wonder, Roughie, in this situation, if Eddie Howe, there's two trains of thought here, which is one, he's got his man and he's just waiting till the clear out and he'll come in June, or Eddie Howe could be working his ticket, playing the field to see if there's a better offer in the Premier League. If that was the case, I'd tell him to take a running jump, Roughie.
Yeah, well, I would like to think that the people that are talking to him will get that sense in certain questions that you are going to ask him. You'd like to think that he's honest enough to come out with something rather than keeping you hanging on. So the owner of the club is a big businessman. I'm sure he's been in this scenario before in business, so he'll know when to pull the plug in it if he does have to pull the plug in it. But you're right. I think if you asked Eddie Howe, would you rather stay in the English Premiership, or it be Newcastle or Crystal Palace, you would tend to think that that's the way he would go. But I'm sure everybody at Celtic will hoping that isn't the way to go, because I think they're all looking forward to him. I think they're now buying into him. I mean, we've heard everybody saying how good he is. Even I think it was his local postman said he's a fantastic manager, so that might just sway it.
Yeah, it doesn't sway it for me. I mean, at the end of the day, Stephen, I can remember people from, I think it was Norway, saying Ronnie Deila was a great manager. The proof is in the pudding. Bournemouth is one thing. Celtic and Rangers at any time is a totally different animal completely.
It is. I think that people just look at it as a general. If you look at it subjectively, his coaching credentials of what he can do with individual players and teams on a budget, second to none what he's done with Bournemouth. But the other side and the layer that's missing there is the mentality of a club like Celtic and what they expectation, and working under that extreme pressure. I will guarantee you not many managers have been at a more high pressure job than any of the old firm. And that's the part for me that probably hasn't been as tested as the coaching side and how he does to build a team and his philosophy of how he wants to play as a manager. But so it is, but that's part of the draw. I think for managers and top class managers, that's got to be part of the draw of coming to Celtic, is that you're challenging for titles, you've got European football, and then the demand to having to win constantly. So, but I'm with yourself. I think it would be worrying for MD involved with Celtic if they didn't know who they wanted by this point. The manager was relieved of his duties a while back, so they should be far down the line in terms of who they want, and it'll be about trying to get them in the door, really.
Yeah, I have no doubt that is the case for me, Tam. It just basically, looking at it, surveying the evidence, looking at the way Dermot Desmond does his business, I do not think they will have to rush to a plan B now. I may be wrong because, stranger things have happened. You can't rule out that small percentage, but I do think he's got his man, whoever he may be, and he knows what the job in hand is. The only bonus for for Dermot Desmond is Peter Lawwell will get a chance to sit down with Dominic Mackay on April 19th and say, okay, here's the job. Here's what happens. Here's the madness. If you think Scottish Rugby was a chief executive job and it follows this business acumen, then I'm sorry, you're in for a rude awakening. Here are the other parts of the job that are completely nuts.
Yeah, looking at the whole story, Peter, I think if I was a Celtic fan, I would put my faith in Dermot Desmond. Celtic, because of the collapse of last season and the almost sudden, if you like, re-emergence of Rangers, who won the league in a hack canter. Dermot Desmond has now got to get serious. This has got to be a serious appointment. He's got to pick the right man at Celtic. And the last time, of course, Dermot Desmond found himself in this position, he brought in Brendan Rodgers. and the rest, as they say, is history. So I think he deserves a fair crack at the whip here for the Celtic fans to get on and do his business. And my gut instinct is that he'll come up trumps, but I just hope he would do it sooner rather than later, Peter, because I'm sure I speak for a lot of people here, Celtic fans and football fans in general. I'm getting kind of sick of the build-up with Eddie Howe. And even just with the papers every day, they must be running out of people who had any dealings whatsoever with Eddie Howe in the past, who you can get 2 pages out of to say what a great man he is, what a great manager. We've had this for about 3 weeks now, it seems. So I wish Celtic would just get cracking, bring in whoever it is, and then, of course, they can start selling the season tickets to their fans.
Yeah, I must admit, I haven't quite read the one that Roughie has obviously read, saying the milkman says he's a great manager as well. I'm not quite sure what paper you've actually got to, Roughie, with that one, but I take your point. It is becoming a bit of a pain in the back end, just constantly reading, this, that, the other, and then, of course, every player who ever played for Bournemouth potentially been linked with them. The one thing
Can I ask you a question, Peter? Is it a given that it is Eddie Howe? I mean, I don't know. Is there a chance that Dermot Desmond suddenly plucks another name out the hat and somebody is unveiled at Celtic Park next week?
Oh, listen, absolutely, there is always that. There is always that potential, Tam. The point here is basically, it's joined the dots on certain people that have been called to try and say, right, has he been spoken to? Is he taking the job? And these are all people in, you hope you get one that's within Eddie Howe's circle, which is why everybody down South Sky Sports, other people in written press who are looking for somebody who's connected to him enough to give them a steer. It won't necessarily be he's definitely taking it. It's a steer to say he's been spoken to and you're on the right track.
I read an interview with Harry Redknapp, so I could have pictured they two going down Sandbanks Beach having a conversation, and he's probably likely somebody that's in the know, so it's probably not too far from the truth, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be another one thing about it, which is certain here. If it is Eddie Howe, everything will have been agreed by now. Because, I can only give you the experience of how he's dealt with it all before. I've spoken to numerous managers who've all dealt with Dermot Desmond and how he operates within going to get someone. He will take them to a place out with anybody's praying eyes, and he'll sit down and he'll say, here's your money. Here's your bonuses if you get success. Here's your backroom team if they agree to it. Sticking point could be a director of football. And then after that, he'll say to him, this guy, and this guy are leaving. The rest of them, you can make your call on some of them. And this is the budget you're going to have. And then it's game on. So that's where I think we're at with this one. The one thing about Eddie Howe is he may well be saying to himself, okay, I'll come in June once certain people are not there anymore so that I can have a fresh slate and I can start afresh with my team and I don't have to deal with people that I don't want to be there. And one of them, of course, at this moment, Roughie, is Lee Griffiths, because I think Lee Griffiths, I think he'll be out of Celtic. I don't know about you, but I think there are clubs sniffing around who'll think, now here's a goal scorer, he's well worth a punt.
I don't think he'd be a bad signing. You're obviously talking about the Premiership. I don't think he's done enough to go down to England. Maybe there's somebody down there will remember what he's done and think they can put an arm around him and get him back to where he is. But there must be a deep lying thing why he's not a regular in the Celtic team. There must be things going on behind the scenes. We all know about the training side of it, and it depends if it might be a gamble for somebody, but if he stayed in the Scottish Premiership, whatever team he went to, he would score goals. He's proved he'll score goals at that level. So and he's going to be free, I think. I think that it's an option for the next year. So somebody will take a shot on him. There's no doubt about that. But for the boy himself, surely I saw a photograph of him sitting in the seats at Parkhead last week when he was subbed. You would like to think the shilling has finally dropped to what he is beginning to throw out the window. The Euros for a start would be a tremendous place for him to be. So you would just hope that he got his act together and started believing that the player that we all know he is.
Well, you would think he's not a poor boy, Stephen. Now, there are various other things in the background that may well rob him of a few shekels here and there, but he'll be financially set up. My feeling is, if I had to say to Lee Griffiths right now, right, there are two clubs in for you, it's Aberdeen and Hibs, he would be hightailing it across to Edinburgh and buying himself a flat again. Because all his mates are there, and he just wants to be. My feeling is he just wants to be a Hibs legend. But whether Aberdeen have got enough sway, who knows?
Yeah, I think that would certainly be the easy option for him and the one that's probably lowest risk in terms of he knows what he's going to. But for Griff, I think he'll have options because he's a goal scorer, and I think no matter how current form any forward is in, if they are a goal scorer, there's always a demand for them, and every manager will be like Roughie said. I can get an arm round him. I can get the best out of him. That'll happen every season. So I think he'll have his options. The one thing that will go against him is the amount of football that he's missed over the course of the last two seasons for whatever reason. But for him, again, there's so much on the line. The Euros, being out of contract or whatever the situation may be come the summer, he has got to understand that the amount that is riding on not only just this last 5 weeks, but the whole summer. The whole summer is massive for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was at Hibs, if that was a deal that could be done if he became a free agent.
Yeah, Tam, I think he's got 5 games to try and sneak in as the last person in the squad. I mean, he should have been really at the forefront of it. But unfortunately, as Stephen's alluded to, Roughie and I have watched it. He just hasn't applied himself. If he's got 5 games to maybe sneak in.
Yeah, I think personally I'm a huge fan. Lee Griffiths, I would love to see him in that squad. I think he even deserves it just in the back of what he did to England 3 years ago. It'd be nice if we get another crack at them. There's talk that Stevie Clarke, along with all the other coaches, will be able to get 2 golden tickets, I think it is, Peter, to increase the size of the squad in case there are any health issues with COVID. And I would definitely have Lee Griffiths in there, even just sitting on the bench. Even, maybe the game's 0-0 or we're getting beat 1-0 and we're desperate for a point in one of the Euro games and you thought you could chuck him on. You know what he's like, Peter. If he does get half a chance inside the box, the ball is invariably in the back of the net. And of course, we know only too well what he can do for those free kicks from the edge of the box. I personally think as well, Peter, that Lee Griffiths simply needs a fresh start, both as a player and a person. And I think it would absolutely breathe new life into him if he did go to another club in the summer. And I know there's been talk, you say Hibs, there's been talk of Aberdeen, there maybe following Scott Brown up there. I don't know how much money we would be looking at in terms of wages, but, you need to surgically remove the smile from my face if I thought Motherwell were able to get him, because he's one of the players that I put in the bracket, Peter. It's an analogy I've used with you before. If you see him running down the tunnel at Fir Park to play against you, you immediately think he's going to score a goal against you. And I would love to have somebody like that in my team. But the only thing I would disagree with you, Peter, you said that, you might have plenty of money. But I'll remind you, when you've got Christmas and birthday presents for 14 wains, it soon puts a battering. Soon puts a battering into the old bank account. So I think he needs to go out there and work.
Yeah, Roughie and I many a time sitting in the press box saw all the kids jumping up when their dad scored. And I mean all the kids and all the wives and all the girlfriends. But nevertheless, John Kennedy says he's got a big decision to make.
The last year can sometimes be an option year. So you find that, players might sign a 3-year contract with a year option at the end of that. And obviously that's where Lee's at with his situation. So there's an option at the end of this year. Again, this is one of these decisions that will have to be made. Again, that'll be a discussion between Lee and the club. It'll remain private till decided.
I'll tell you who else would be a good signing, Roughie. The boy, Jack Hendry. Okay, it might not be at the top level that he's playing in Belgium, but at least he's getting regular football.
You certainly have to have a look at him. I mean, I don't think Stevie Clarke's taken him on board with the national side if he hadn't had good reports about how he'd been doing over there. But it's certainly something the way Celtic are now, particularly at the back, that you've got to have a look at, and maybe he has matured. Maybe that year and a bit has made him a better player. But certainly, you're not going to let him go, for nothing. He's worth a lot of money. So, no, it's all this hinges on the next manager who comes in. The next manager is going to have his idea of what kind of player he wants, and he'll be the one that makes a decision. So I think we have to wait really until this manager comes in, because he's going to have a list in front of him that he's going to have to go through.
Yeah, and if we were all raving at the start of this programme about the great football we were watching between Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain, don't forget it's Celtic against Livingston at the weekend, and the ball will undoubtedly have a flight path across Prestwick Airport. And Livingston are coming with the hopes of Europe in mind, according to David Martindale.
If you then include the top six, we're reaching a National Cup final. You could say it probably has exceeded our expectations. I think the season to end on a tremendous footing, or a fantastic footing, I think we need to try and secure European football for the football club. So that, for me, if we do that, it would definitely have exceeded the season from the start of the season.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one thing, Stephen. It's hard to watch Livingston at times, and I'm not going to try and court favour with anybody. They are a hard watch, but I always look at it as a boxer in a ring. There are many ways to win a fight, especially if you're up against a team that's better than you, have got better players, can play better football. Your job is to work out with the players you have how to beat them.
Yeah, it's the biggest debate in football, how the game should be played. And like you said, and the Martindale's mentioned in the past about their budget and where they sit within the league. So they've got to use the resources they've got. I think I'm one that's not a fan of the plastic pitches, and I do think that has an effect in their games and the teams that are going to play there. But overall, they've got to survive. Their main aim is to stay in the league, no matter what way. And they're in a group. They're in a group of 4 or 5, 6 clubs who, at the start of a season, their aspirations are stay in the league and do what we can to do it. So, like you said, they've got to a cup final, and as a squad, he's probably maximised that. In terms of European football, I think they've got a slim outside chance, but with the fixtures in the top 6, you would need to go on a very good run to secure a European spot, which I think they will miss out on.
Yeah. This next topic of conversation is something that has been a regular occurrence since that match between Rangers and Slavia Prague. I don't know if you caught the news item with Glenn Kamara, Tam, but he's mentioned that he's been abused, racially abused. Slavia fans have been on his Twitter and his Instagram every day. And I think I think we're in a sad situation with a boy that doesn't court publicity, gets on with his job. The general feeling is that Glenn Kamara has been a £50,000 steal for Rangers, and suddenly he's in the eye of the storm. And I thought it was really sad when he says he felt as if, he felt like a victim on that day in that game, and he wished maybe that he'd walked off. He wouldn't hesitate again if it happened.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll do that if it ever happens again. You would obviously hope it doesn't happen again, Peter, that the messages get through. But it's absolutely staggering. It defies belief to think that this guy has been receiving that sort of absolute garbage on a daily basis. I mean, Peter, even the 4 of us here, we all in our own way. You get the odd wee bit of abuse on social media, whatever, Mullow or Rotten, Cowan, all the pies, all that kind of stuff. Steven Naismith gets a battering. But it's nothing as absolutely sinister and horrible as what that guy has been through. And again, Peter, it goes way above the football authorities here. We keep singing for the same hymn sheet in this one. It has to be the police authorities that get involved in this. It might be the social media sites themselves who allow folk to go on completely anonymously and, abuse people in this absolutely sickening manner. Whereas if the people come on, if they did have to use their real names, if you did know where these people lived, then you get the feeling it would nip it in the bud like that. It's absolutely ghastly, and I would really love to see it that, you know, heaven forbid, if Glenn Kamara was ever subjected to this garbage again, that he did just walk off the park. That's the way to make it a real talking point. I mean, this story already, ever since that incident, the guy, you know, cutting his mouth and all the rest of it, that will have reverberated round the footballing globe, if you like. But the very image of a player walking off the park after receiving abuse, that's one that would really have to hit home with UEFA, with FIFA, because I still can't believe, Peter. I know UEFA are now addressing this, and farcically, Glenn Kamara is up in a charge. I mean, it's just farcical. You couldn't make it up. I know the heftier punishment, of course, we all hope is going to go to that clown Kudela. But, you know, UEFA, I can't believe even it took to now. It's only like this week we're hearing they're taking action. That should almost have been done in an emergency meeting at UEFA the morning after that Rangers Slavia Prague game. They've got to show that they mean business.
Well, I would counter that by only offering this in an objective sense. And I know a lot of people are angered that Glenn Kamara has, you know, potentially, you know, the prospect of a 5-game ban. And of course, there's a 1-game ban at the moment for Kudela. But you have to take this in, put it in perspective, and look at what's happening with it. I understand where you're coming from, Tam. People want a quick fix. They want an immediate decision on certain things. But Stephen, Glenn Kamara has mentioned that, you know, of the abuse that he's taking, you know, it's not good. It doesn't affect him as much as it's affecting some of his teammates who are rightly angry. But there's a fair amount of hysteria, Stephen, that's following this story. And what you've got to do is take a step back and say, look, UEFA are looking at the evidence. They're trying to corroborate, and hopefully Zungu stands up as a second backup to him to say, look, this is what's been said. And then they'll look and they may well have audio. They may well have another camera angle. They may well have an assistant. Once you put all the evidence together, then you can make an informed decision rather than listening to what I think is happening at the moment is all this noise and hysteria to try and sway UEFA must do this, must do that. You know, it doesn't matter how many times Glenn Kamara's agent comes out and releases a statement. Glenn Kamara, I thought, was very articulate and put his point across, and I think we're all hoping that he gets it resolved. But they will make their call once they have all the evidence, and then hopefully we'll get to a decision which is the right one.
The investigation needs to happen, and it needs to happen in a proper manner, like you're suggesting. I think part of the if you like, noise that's coming out is probably because the faith that has been shown in the process before hasn't lived up to expectation. In so many different occasions, there has been so many, oh, there's a fine here, or you're playing without any crowd in this game. Are the punishments tough enough? They've not been up until now. So I think that's why, especially I would say after the Rangers game, the manager, every player doing interviews, they all mentioned and raised the awareness of it because they feel it was such a big issue, which it is. So I think that's partly where everybody are slightly on edge of how this is going to play out, because in the past sanctions haven't been strong enough. Everything Tam said there subjectively is all bang on. The punishment for this, the abuse and how people can just go about doing it so freely and honestly is miles from being good enough. So collectively, everybody needs to change that. But I agree, the investigation has to go proper and a thorough investigation, and then when the outcome comes out and the punishment happens for whoever needs to be punished, it needs to be a very severe one that's going to stop things like this happening in the future.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, Roughie, off the back of this, I mean, I noticed that Swansea have announced a week-long social media boycott on all platforms to combat discrimination. And remember, by the way, Roughie, especially this country, there's a tremendous amount of hypocrisy goes on. People taking the moral high ground on the abuse that any player, I'm not talking about Glenn Kamara, I'm talking about right across the board. We absolutely abhor anybody being abused for the colour of their skin. We also abhor people being abused for their religion and for their sexuality, Roughie. So people should take a step back and think this is not just one issue. This is a collective where people need to take a step back and have a think about themselves on this whole situation. It's not just one item that Show Racism the Red Card is banging on about. It's quite a number of things that a lot of people in our society are guilty of.
Yeah, and I think we all agree that it's finding the road to go down to stop these morons. That there has to be a definitive. I don't know whether it's, Tam touched on the police doing it. I don't know if it's a government thing. If it's a government thing that they have to tell the Twitter companies and whoever it is in social media, this is a new rule that's been brought out. If you don't, act accordingly with it, if you don't work towards eliminating all this stuff, then you're going to be fined millions and millions of pounds. I think that's the only way that it's going to stop. I agree with people, making a case, but we did that with the knee, and then all of a sudden that got stopped, and it made a point. It obviously made a point to a lot of people, but these things just phase out, So I think it really needs to be a definitive where these people are caught and punished and publicly punished, because it just can't go on. So it needs to come for the top for me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll wait to see what the decision is and all the evidence that's put before them. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see it all in its glory and then work out if the punishment fits the crime. Elsewhere, going into football is something that's at the forefront of everyone's mind. There is the little dangle of a carrot, Tam, that potentially Hampden could get more European games because maybe the FA of Ireland can't give the assurances that UEFA are looking for. I'm not too sure, though, Tam, that the way the doors are opening up to a small amount of people, I think there might be a technicality that rules us out getting any great number of fans into the Scottish Cup final anytime soon.
Yeah, well, again, don't be so despondent and negative, Peter. Let's have our glasses half full here. Suddenly we are going to have fans in at Hampden for our 2 games there against the Czech Republic and Croatia in the summer, and that's brilliant. And I think the only dilemma for me now, Peter, I don't know if you've got an answer to this, but if it is 12,500 Scotland fans allowed in to those games, which 12,500 Scotland fans are we talking about? I'm assuming that they would start, of course, with the guys that are in the travel club, the official Tartan Army, if you like. I don't even know what the membership of that body stands at just now, but you'd certainly like to think that the guys who have followed Scotland through thick and mainly thin, they would like to get a ticket. Then you've got the issue with corporate people. I don't know what the situation is now with people on debenture schemes, etc. at Hampden, but there's a wee bit of me, Peter, as we kind of come out of the pandemic, hopefully, and we do start seeing fans back in the football, that even you could maybe do a wee gesture here for the NHS and start actually auctioning off a seat at Hampden at that first game against the Czech Republic, and just start with the highest bidder, work your way down, and all the money goes to NHS Scotland, and then I think that way everybody would be a winner. But if any of the 3 of you can enlighten me just how many official Tartan Army members we have, because I would certainly like to see those guys looked after first and foremost.
Well, the strange thing is, if you're looking at the precedent which has been set, it's quite simply that quite a number of games that have taken place, Roughie, the FA of that particular country has said this game will be played and maybe 1,000, 2,000 health workers will get tickets for it. So I would hope the SFA will follow that pattern, Roughie, and then work their way. I don't know the official amount of people who are part of debenture schemes and the Tartan Army. I just don't know that. I've never been a part of any of those groups, Roughie. I've always just followed Scotland anywhere and everywhere just by getting tickets off mates by hook or by crook when I was a young guy. As I said, me and Davy Moyes managed to get tickets from the Azerbaijan FA. You may be laughing, Naisy. We were there, and with the full Azerbaijan gear on to make sure we were getting in. But I don't know, Roughie, but I would like to think, as Tam mentioned there, I'd like to think that health workers would get a wee chunk of them.
Yeah, I think whoever's going to make that decision is going to disappoint a lot of people. But that would be a start, and then after that, I know we're talking about the Tartan Army, the members and everything. I mean, how do you decide, who you give it to? I think when it was the 300 that were getting in, it was people who were local to the stadium, because obviously they wouldn't be travelling and transmitting anything, So I honestly don't know which way they're going to go down and which way they're going to decide, but NHS is a magnificent start for me, and then after that, somebody's going to get upset with the decision.
Yeah, the other
actually,
thing about it,
Peter,
is...
can I just say here's words that you don't hear very often. That is a great point that Roughie makes, actually, because you're bang on, Roughie. When they did do the trial games, it was only local people, very much so, as they didn't want people to travel. If any sort of restrictions are still in place with regard to that, it's going to be a sore one, as Steven Naismith knows only too well for having pulled on the Scotland colours. There's the heartland of the Tartan Army tends to be out with Glasgow. Let's be honest. You look up north into the northeast, etc. That would be a real kick in the chops if a lot of those guys had to miss out because they were discouraged from travelling from wherever they live down to Glasgow. So I wonder if we're going to end up starting with, right, which members of the Tartan Army do we have in Glasgow, and give a name first, go at it. But your NHS idea, the tickets for the NHS and the key workers, Peter, I think would be absolutely fabulous. And I'm just hoping, so that we can get tickets, I'm just hoping that PLZ is one of the Euro 2020 broadcasting partners, is it?
Well, we're going to go out of our way, Tam, to make sure we are there. The other thing I'm going to go out of my way, which you two guys are not privy to, is because Roughie has 53 caps, he gets 2 golden tickets himself to go to Hampden. And I think it would be a tremendous gesture, because I know that Roughie knows one of the people who works in the NHS, Nurse Amy. If you could give that ticket to Nurse Amy, Roughie, I'd be well pleased to see her in the stand sitting in your seat. I'm just saying that. It's just a thought. I know you know some people who work in the health service, and Amy would be the perfect recipient of that ticket, Roughie. You could give it to her.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I don't know why I never come up with it myself, but I'll certainly pursue that. I don't know if Ronnie would be happy with that, but I'll run it by him first.
Who cares about her dad? Just get her there, right? It's as simple as that. Anyway, I wish we could put a photograph up of Nurse Amy right now, but nevertheless, it's a worthy cause.
Peter, this is me saying this. Is this Euro 2020 we're looking forward to, or Euro 1980? This is turned into a carry-on film.
I know exactly.
Calm down, boys.
I didn't know whether you were talking about Eurotrash, the programme.
No, I know. Anytime Roughie has a party, his best mate always gets his daughters and their pals invited to it. I mean, the age range for Roughie's parties are about 10, 70-year-olds, and then this whole batch of nurses. It's incredible. It's a party you turn up for just because you can't believe the wide gap in the age range. Anyway, apart from anything else, I digress. The one thing about the Scottish Cup final, though, Stephen, which is a technicality, is apparently UEFA will have control of the stadium to try and get it ready for Euro 2020, which could preclude any fans from going into the Scottish Cup final. That's the technicality they're talking about that would rule out any fans for our showpiece.
Yeah, just before you go on, I'm sure there's about 35,000 members of the Tartan Army after.
Yeah.
So there is going to be a fair amount of them going to miss out, I would imagine. But the Scottish Cup final, I think, as a player and being associated with a club, I don't think MD's really expected this season that there'll be fans in. So I think just looking in that in isolation, that is where it is. We've not had them all season. I think it would have been really nice to, but having the good news that for the Euros and then hopefully beyond, that can be the line in the sand where we can then get fans back for next season and going on after that. But it's disappointing, but I think it's expected, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Listen, there'll be good news here for you, Stephen. Ron Gordon, the Hibs chief, was talking, obviously, about the financial figures for Hibernian and the potential maybe of selling one, possibly two players just to balance the books for the losses incurred over this pandemic year. But he did mention that he's really looking forward to having Hearts back in the top flight next season.
I do. Absolutely. It's good for football. It's good for Edinburgh. As long as we win the derby, that's the important thing. But yes, I mean, I think it's good. They're a big club and they deserve to be in, and they should be in the Premiership. So it'll be great to have them back.
We talked about it last night, Stephen. Edinburgh derby would be great. A Highland derby would be great. A Dundee derby would be great. An Old Firm derby. You're talking about that could have happened if people had got together and looked at the bigger picture, a bigger league.
Yeah, I think it is a game. Obviously, we need to get over the line before confirming that. But the derby is a massive part of the capital. You definitely notice there is a bit more edge with the fans and that for that. We had one this season where you came out in top, so it showed the gap between the teams in terms of what the performance level can be at is very minimal. So hopefully we get the job done, and next season we've got more of them to look forward to, like the previous seasons.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Tam. I mean, I lived in Edinburgh for 12 years, loved the city, loved the people, and I love the Edinburgh Derby. Have you been to one?
No, I've never been to one, but again, I wouldn't miss one on the telly, Peter. I think it's a cracking match. There's been some belters recently. And, Ron Gordon's right there. As much as, Hibs fans love to have a wee chuckle about Hearts when they're in the doldrums, and vice versa. Hearts fans love nothing better than we laugh at the expense of Hibs. But you need the two of them up there in the top flight, playing each other 4 times a season. They're absolutely huge matches, and that's how we need Hearts up there. As Steven Naismith is saying, they'll be up there eventually. I feel that by the time they do get up this season, it will be time to come back down. They need, really need to get their finger out here, but there's no doubt about that. I'd love, though, just to ask, if I could ask Stevie what he reckons the issue. What's it been, Stephen? I mean, everybody thought you were home and hosed weeks ago, and then it appears to have been one bad result, one bad performance after another. For the Hearts fans that are tuned into this, what would you say to them? Is it a wee bit of jitters, a wee bit of nerves?
I wouldn't say it's nerves, because I don't think we've ever been. The gap's not been short enough to really be like, oh, we are really concerned here that it's without our grasp or out our control. I think if I'm honest, it's probably been sloppy performances, and with the cup game's unforgivable in terms of how we went out. That shouldn't happen. And then on the back of that, you have a poor result, which against Queen of the South, which wasn't down to a bad performance. It was down to 3 individual mistakes that cost us. So it's just sloppiness. That's been the problem. The good thing is that we're 2 results away, and we've got good fixtures coming up. That a home game tomorrow night that can hopefully push you that edge of that bit closer. So it's more, I would say, it's been more sloppiness and individual errors than any jitters or anything like that.
Yeah, have you had to, sometimes when you get to that situation, do you have a meeting, because you're in a bubble anyway, but has there been an additional sit down to say, look, let's survey the carnage here? Has there been anything like that?
After the cup game, we spoke as a squad just to kind of have a look over that and go over what went wrong, but also to show that that's not acceptable at the club. From where the club expect to be and where we are now, there's loads of work to get done. The results like that in the cup, and before that in the cup competitions, we'd been to 4 semi-finals and 2 cup finals. So that's miles away from what's expected. So there was a meeting about that, but not so much about getting over the line, because, like I said, it's been more individual error than everybody just being in bad form. That's been the biggest problem. So I'm sure if we can start a game well, that'll be the thing that turns the performance, get in the lead, and hopefully have a positive performance with some good results tomorrow night. That's got to be the aim.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, Dunfermline, okay, it wasn't a classic, but there can't be any slip-ups tomorrow, because I get that feeling, Stephen, that people are now just waiting to pounce on the manager.
Yeah, and if you look at the game, we're playing Alloa at home, who have struggled. They've got a system, and they play very good football, but they're bottom of the league, and we're at home, and we're the overriding favourites to win the league. So that's a game we should be dominant and have a composed performance and go out and win. That is what we should be expecting, and it's within the group of players and the management to have the build up right, and then to get into the game and do that. Because, like you said, there's pressure on everybody at the club because of the recent results, and that's not going to go away. But as players and coaching staff and that, you need to accept it. The only way you can get out of that is by winning games and putting on performances.
Yeah. I've got to say congratulations, Roughie, to James McPake. James has had his own pressures with people questioning his managerial quality, but he's manager of the month for March. Dundee with wins over Inverness, Broth, Alloa and Dunfermline. So James deserves a huge pat in the back. Suddenly they're in the mix in the playoffs.
Yeah, again, I've always been, let's look at the situation at the end of a season. I hate when some teams, jump in when there's a wee bad run and it's a new manager and they're not giving them time to settle in. And I'm sure maybe 2 months ago that could have happened with James. But no, he's shown that he's got what it takes. I think if we listen to Charlie, the playoffs is where they want to be, but not just the playoffs, second place in the playoffs, to stop the games. And if he achieves that, then that for me is something to work on. And I hope he does, because we've had him on the show a few times. He's a very, very nice guy, for what he's been through injury-wise and everything. And they're the kind of guys you want to succeed. So I would just sit in there and let it happen, and then decide if it doesn't happen what you're going to do. But as it is just now, well done to him for what he's been through.
Yeah, and just try and hold your nerve, Stephen, if you can. Charlie boys missed a penalty the other night there. It's not looking good for him. Every now and then there's a wee slip up. He just brushed it off. But I don't want any penalty misses from you tomorrow night.
No, definitely not. Composed for performance is what's needed, and I think, like I said, it takes us so close within one game, and being in nice situations before, they're the times that you then go and enjoy it, because it's within touching distance.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going to. Is that game on the BBC tomorrow night, Stephen?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Well, two words: Tyrone and Fizz. The love triangle in Coronation Street. It's brilliant, isn't it? It's absolutely all happening. If you want to know when the game's over, though, Stevie, drop me a text and let me know how you get on. All right.
Tom, I was thinking to myself, when you have one game which is an absolute classic, you usually have to suffer another 10 dud games all the way after it. So tonight I'm looking and I'm thinking, Arsenal, I hope Arsenal absolutely batter Slavia Prague. Granada against Man United, Zagreb, Villarreal, and Ajax against Roma. Granda, sorry. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. I think I might give the Europa League a miss tonight. And then, Roughie, will we put ourselves through the pain barrier for Hearts against Alloa on Friday? I think I'm going to watch it.
Well, I don't know who Tam's talking about, but I've been swayed to go with Tam, because it sounds quite exciting for where
That's good.
You are a moron, you really are. I'll be supporting you. That's unbelievable, Stephen. I'll be watching it anyway. Listen, thanks to lots of people who've been mentioning lots of brilliant backing of the NHS and Glenn Kamara. We hope the right answer comes out of this one, and of course he is backed, because it's based on last night listening to the boy He's had a pretty rough time, and I'm not too sure you would associate Glenn Kamara with making things like that up. Let's hope we get the right resolution on that one and we move on, and bear in mind how we should conduct ourselves across social media. Thanks to all the people who watch this programme and comment on it. 99% of the people who watch the programme are great. Love their football, love their club, and love talking about it. We love the banter as well. Thanks to everyone. Sorry about Roughie's pictures. I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go around there with a spirit level and just try and sort them out, and then hopefully, I mean, look.
What are the two screws on the big picture?
Yeah, what's that?
Right.
I don't know their names.
It's just mental. Oh, look, I'm trying to fix one of them. Don't bother. They're all over the place. It's fantastic. Anyway, thanks to Tam, to Stevie, to Roughie. I'll tell you what happens tomorrow and Monday on the Hearts Alloa game. And Tam next week will tell us what happens in that cliffhanger in Coronation Street. But to you, thank you for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit Arnold